Gonna go live, social media. It's gonna get taken down before you know it. I don't know, maybe not. Guys, hey, so I just got this article shared. Thank you, Brian. This is awesome. So what I've been talking about in numbers, this is great. So what I mean by that, so what I've been talking about is how the skewing of testing happens in all of these. And I've used H1N1 as my example because when H1 came out April 2009, the early numbers said it was a 17% fatal disease, right? That was the fatality rate, 17%. As we moved through the summer, it dropped to 9%. As we got into the fall of 2009, it dropped to 0.02%. Obviously, fear could have hit a global pandemic level with social media in 2009 had we had this level of social interaction connectivity through social media. Because we did not, we all survived H1N1. Well, those who are here, I mean, obviously it killed a lot of people, 280 plus thousand people worldwide, so it still killed a ton of people. But it's interesting. We're making this the world pandemic. So about the author, before I get into this is from Stat News. I've enjoyed Stat News for years. Well, I don't know, at least for a couple years. Because when you have an interest in something, you can go a lot of times if it's a world interest, then they'll have something on it that helps you out. So John P.A. Ioannidis, John is a professor of medicine, of epidemiology and population health. So public health, I've talked a lot in my videos about this as a public health thing. Of biomedical data science, he's a professor in these areas, and of statistics, which is fabulous because it means he actually has to apply some truth to what he's talking about because stats are stats. Now, of course, you can cut stats and shimmy stats and make them look certain ways, which is why we're all freaking out right now about this disease spreading. That's my belief anyways. Again, my belief, I may seem insensitive, I get it. If someone dies, that's a person. But people die from car accidents and you choose to drive your car. I'm just saying, stop telling me that, my one person matters. I get it, everyone matters. I'm not saying that they don't matter. We're here for them. I still drive a car, and you probably still do too. And if it really came down to that, then you'd say those 30,000 dead people from car accidents matter. We should stop driving cars, right? I mean, stop and think about it. And the reason we don't is we don't want to have that kind of interruption to our lives. That's it. Don't tell me it's any different because it's not. Thank you again, Brian, for that example. That was fabulous. So, and co-director of Stanford's Meta Research Innovation Center. So this guy, this author, is a pretty smart guy. Smarter than me, for sure. I'm actually kind of an idiot, as you, I'm sure, agree. All right, so the current coronavirus, COVID-19, has been called a once-in-a-century pandemic, right? That's a pretty significant deal. And you get that this is SARS-CoV, right? Because this is a SARS variant. So I just want to make sure you guys understand that. So he talks about this. He talks about kind of the draconian countermeasures that have been adopted in many countries, such as, stay in your homes, come out and we'll shoot you kind of mentality, right? Martial law has been applied. Let's get to the numbers, though. I know you guys want this. So the official 3.4% fatality rate from the World Health Organization. I can see if I can find the published date. Look at that. The published date was yesterday. St. Patty's Day. It didn't feel a whole lot like typical St. Patty's Day in our country, did it? So this is interesting here because I love what he did for the stats. So we're going to go to the Diamond Princess cruise ship and the quarantined passengers. The case fatality rate there was 1%, largely an elderly population though. So what he's going to do is he's going to apply the deaths across that population to the American population. So projecting the Diamond Princess mortality rate onto the age structure of the US population, the death rate among people infected with COVID-19 would be 0.125%. So if we took just that population, it's only 700 people, so the data pool is only 700. Of course, he references this because the guy's a genius. So there were just seven deaths among 700 infected passengers, okay? 700 people, 7 people died, and crew, of course. The real death rate could stretch from 5 times lower, so he's reapplying back to the age-related US population structure. It could stretch from 5 times lower, 0.025%, to 5 times higher, 0.625%. So he's applying statistical analysis to this to do a regression. And in that he says 0.025 would be the real up to 0.0625 with 0.125 being kind of in the middle, right? So it was 5 times lower, 5 times higher. That's where we get the real fatality rate coming off of that group. So the risk factor for worse outcomes with COVID-2. So basically adding these extra sources of uncertainty, reasonable estimates for the case fatality ratio to the general US population varies from 0.05 to 1%. So I think that's a pretty, that's an acceptable number of, okay, this makes more sense. This is falling into like what a strong influenza might end up doing. Where was that? Here it is. The relationship between this compared to just flu. So the next point is, who are we testing? And you've heard me say this. Who are we testing? You test people with symptoms. You test people who are highly likely, people who come into contact with. But that's typically who's tested. Right now we're saying we don't have enough tests. We can't test. We got to test people. And that is my goal. I want to have more people tested because that's when you start to reveal this. So back to what I said about the H1N1, the reason why that number dropped from 17.9 down to 0.02 was because the ability to test expanded dramatically. And as the ability to test expands dramatically, you realize, oh my gosh, that guy's got it. And he's got it, and she's got it, and they got it. And before you know it, you realize, like, wait, if this many people are walking around with it and more people aren't dying, maybe it's not really as bad. And so, just to really, if one person dies, it's bad. But one person dies from car accidents. One person dies from the flu. In the time that we've been doing this, there have been more flu deaths in our country than there have been of these so far, right? Maybe a smaller percentage, but then maybe not. So look at this, influenza. So far this season, 1,073,976 specimens have been tested, and he gives reference for where he gets his numbers from. He's obviously he's a professor who's probably published more than anyone I know. And 222,552 have tested positive for influenza. So 20.7% of those tested have been tested positive. In the same period, the estimated number of influenza-like illnesses, so people walking around with flu-like symptoms, has been 36 to 51 million people. So we've been testing for influenza for forever now, right? And in that, we've only tested 1 million people of the potential 36 to 51 million people, with an estimated 22,000 to 50,000 flu-related deaths. So, his point, and it's in the article over and over and over, my point is that world fear of this is the pandemic. It's world fear of this. You see people dying in Italy at these numbers and you think, oh my gosh, this is unprecedented, yet flu is doing the same thing. So I think right now, we have this opportunity to say, hey, what we really need to do is reduce our fear and drive one thing and one thing more than anything, which is testing. Testing. We had a woman who works with us in our development here at Dare Park tell us that she had a close friend, maybe one of her best friends, who is up north somewhere, got sick, and she got really sick. She's maybe 50 years old, healthy, works out, etc. Got sick, got really sick. I can remember the last time I had the flu that I got sick. It was a number of years ago, maybe a decade-ish. And I remember that feeling of like, holy cow, this is gonna kill me. I can't function, I can't breathe, this fever thing, oh my gosh. And so some people are gonna have that, and some people are gonna be like symptom-free, and some people, yes, they will die just like they do from these others. So I think what my point is and what his point is viruses come and they're here, and they don't just go away. We don't have really control to just make them disappear. It's not gonna happen. No matter what we do, it's just not gonna disappear. It's gonna be here. So if we continue to have fear of this without understanding that we're on the same kind of number chart as so many others before it, then we're gonna screw up everything, for maybe nothing. All right. Again, everyone matters. Don't say I don't care. Love you.